Hi folks, I hope you're well. As you will see in the description of the last video, yes, Times Magazine asking the question, is God dead? They would have to therefore make their case pretty good. They would have to have a pretty good strong case, would be the rather way to say it, because obviously the kickback from the church would be immense. If they asked such a question, it would be an insult on the church. So at that point in time, there was no sign of life. And so therefore, that's why they wrote the article, because there was no sign of life. And yeah, we've had nothing. We've had Toronto, bless him, we've had a few things like that, people try to grab hold of and make it look as if we've got some sort of revival. We haven't. We've had no revival, really, of anything to mention since. We've had local events. Toronto was a very local event. It spread a bit, but it was pretty local. The main of it was local. So, yeah. Again, it's nothing to be depressed about. The reality is, the Bible says there'll be a falling away at the end. So, yeah. We should understand that as, okay, we have a tick box, don't we? We have a box that is ticked and was ticked a while back. That's fine. I'm not concerned about it. I don't look at that and go, well, in a way it's horrendous, because there are some people who are going to die before the Lord comes back, and die in churches that are leading people simply to hell, that are not leading people to God. So there would be many. As I say, I mean, it is. The devil, as I said last night, and it's true. It is true. In hell, yeah, they know. They know that an awful lot of people that have been in church are going to be joining them pretty soon. And that is terrible. So I'm not saying it's not terrible in that sense, but in a sense of, this is the will of God. This is exactly how things are supposed to be in the last days. And, okay. So we're there. It's not something to be unnaturally fearful of, because it's what it is. I'm not fearful for the people in church, because why would I be? If I know of people in church that are hanging on to the cliff edge by their fingertips and wanting help, then I'll be fearful for them. But I don't know anyone who's in that position. Most people that I've met in churches are on firm ground, and ground that they chose. So therefore, there's no point me fearing for those people or being sorry for them. Because, no. I don't feel sorry for them, because they've chosen the path that they're on. And, yeah, as I say, we've had for a long time a situation where initially, you go back to the early church. In the early church, it would have been far more difficult for those who weren't of good ground to stay in the church, because there would have been people bringing truth. And we see it in Paul's writings. There are things going on in the church of Corinth, and he is pointing those things out. You wouldn't get that in church now. No. You wouldn't get any of that in church now. then pointing out a sexual immorality. I had a conversation with Rick Harris a few weeks ago when they had their soup kitchen talking about adultery and talking about the fact that, if you've had sexual intercourse with someone who you weren't actually married to at the time, you've committed adultery. He didn't see it. He said, well, actually, that if that person isn't married, you're hardly committing adultery. No, but you are, because you're supposed to be intended for someone else, and so is that other person. So spiritually, from God's point of view, yeah. So therefore, come on, they don't even understand the spiritual. They're looking at it from the world's point of view. That person isn't legally married to someone else, therefore you can't be committing adultery. I'm not talking about the adultery that when you go to court and find out what caused the divorce. No, I'm not talking about that. The legal definition of adultery. For goodness sake, you're a pastor of a church. You're a teacher. You don't understand there's a spiritual? So, no, they won't be holding people accountable because it's not in their nature to do so. So, yeah. Yeah. So now we have churches that are full of people that were on, or their ground was bad, of no fruit. And so therefore, they all think they're right with God. They all think they're on a path to heaven, and they're not. And, it's what it is. The River Church was full of these people. Older people that were of... I was to say, the bloke who Jeff Oakes got to do that teaching that I got quite annoyed about and upset about, that person had said he was in his 70s. And he said he's still waiting for God to use him. In his 70s, he's still waiting for God to use him. He's been in the church for 40 odd years. And he's still waiting for God to use him. Yeah. Never going to happen, sunshine. You're waiting. You're not doing anything about it. All he was doing was waiting. Yeah. For goodness sake. Now, for me, as I say, I've not waited. Even in the years when, very little was happening. Again, very little, I can say that, but I know that a few things that were quite big have happened. That God has used me to help people in different ways over the years. But, when mostly it was nothing, I was going to God and kept on going to God. What is going wrong? Why is this the case? Why am I not doing better? Why are you not using me? Why is there something there? Obviously I'm not ready. So get me ready. This man in his 70s still waiting for God. Why? Because he doesn't understand. If you've already got to 70, if you've been in the church for 40 odd years and you're now 70, likely it is you're going to die and God's never going to have done anything through you. Because you're not going to God about it. Well, yeah. But again, that's people. People aren't encouraged. They're encouraged to go to the pastor. They're encouraged to go to leaders and to other believers, to the house group, to whatever, but not to God. Insane. But we are where we are. Aren't we really? We are where we are. So there you go. I wish you well. And yes. Yeah. You don't ask the question, is God dead? Well, it's like any person. You don't ask, is that person dead? Unless there's pretty good evidence to suggest it is. So there you go. Take care. Bye bye.